1942, London. In the very heart of the British Empire, a perfect spy network is operating. It consists of a dozen phantom agents. They are everywhere, in the Ministry of Information, in naval bases, in army headquarters. They transmit hundreds of secret radio messages to Berlin. They report on every movement of British troops. They operate so efficiently that this network will eventually earn its leader. An agent codenamed Alaric, the Iron Cross, Germany's highest military honor. But even now, German intelligence considers him a genius, their greatest asset in this war. But if you try to find this super spy on the streets of London, you will fail. If you try to arrest even one of his agents, you won't find anyone, because not a single one of these people exists. And the greatest spy of the Third Reich is currently sitting in a public library in Portugal. He speaks neither English nor German. He has no military background. He has never held a weapon in his life. Just a couple of years ago, he was a hotel manager, breeding chickens on a farm in Spain. So how did a failed farmer conjure a spy network out of thin air? And why did British intelligence, upon learning about this man, not execute him, but instead make him their ultimate weapon? Let's go back to the very beginning. Madrid, 1941. Europe is on fire. Juan Pujol García hates fascism. He saw what Hitler and Mussolini did to his native Spain during the Civil War. He wants to stop them. He goes to the British embassy, approaches M16 agents and says,
"I want to be a spy. I want to work for you."
The British look at him, a short, balding Spaniard, zero military experience. They say,
"No."
Juan returns a week later, rejected again. He comes back a third time. They simply throw him out. The British Empire doesn't need a farmer. Anyone else would have gone home. But Juan reasons differently. If the British don't want to hire me, I'll prove my worth. I will become a German spy. He goes to the German embassy, meets with agents of the Abwehr, German military intelligence. Juan plays a role. He pretends to be a fanatical Nazi, tells them he has connections in the British government, and is ready to go to London to become their top operative. The Germans are thrilled. They give him a crash course in espionage, bottles of invisible ink, $3,000 in cash, and that very codename, Alaric. The mission: travel to Britain and build a spy network. Juan takes the money, shakes hands with the German officers, and leaves. Except he doesn't go to London. Juan arrives in Lisbon, Portugal, neutral territory. He rents a cheap apartment, goes to the local library. He buys a tourist guidebook to Britain, train timetables, recent newspapers, and a French-English dictionary. With this arsenal, he begins to craft the greatest illusion in military history. He sits in Lisbon and writes reports to the Germans from London. But one spy isn't enough, so Juan starts inventing other people. He invents an entire network: an airline pilot, a Welsh fascist, a censor, a disgruntled secretary. He gives them names, personalities, salaries. He asks the Germans for money to fund them, and the Germans pay. Juan reads about troop movements in Portuguese newspapers, tweaks the dates, adds fabricated details, and sends them to Berlin. Sometimes he makes catastrophic mistakes. After all, he doesn't know British culture. Once, he writes to the Germans that the Scots in Glasgow would do anything for a litre of good wine. In Glasgow, wine. In 1941, anyone who had been to Scotland would know the report was a fake, but the Germans believe it. They eat up every word. By 1942, German intelligence relies entirely on Alaric. One day, Juan reports that a massive Allied convoy is leaving Malta. The Germans scramble their air force, deploy U-boats into the Mediterranean, spend colossal resources to intercept it. They are hunting a convoy that doesn't exist. Meanwhile, in London, MI5 cryptographers intercept the German radio transmissions. They read them in absolute shock. British intelligence realizes there is an enemy super spy operating in England. But then they check the data. There is no convoy. The troops aren't there. Nothing adds up. MI5 realizes someone is leading Hitler by the nose. Someone absolutely brilliant. They trace the source to Lisbon. They find Juan, and the British finally say, "Welcome to the team." Juan is secretly brought to London. He's given a team of radio operators, typists, and a handler. He is given a new code name, Garbo, after the actress Greta Garbo, because he is the greatest actor in the world. Now, a farmer's lies become the official weapon of Great Britain, and ahead lies the most important battle of the 20th century. London, 1943. Juan is playing the ultimate game of chess. He is controlling 27 fake spies. He is sending hundreds of messages to Berlin. He is orchestrating the greatest deception in military history. But the biggest threat to his mission doesn't come from the Gestapo. It comes from his own living room. His wife, Araceli. Araceli hates London. She hates the grey skies, the terrible food, the constant bombings. But most of all, she hates the isolation. Because Juan is a top-secret asset, they are ghosts. They cannot have friends. They cannot leave the house freely. They cannot speak to anyone about what they do. To the outside world, they simply do not exist. She is trapped in a cold, foreign city, surrounded by a war she doesn't understand. And slowly, month by month, she is breaking. One evening, the tension finally snaps. A violent argument erupts in the cramped apartment. Araceli screams at Juan. She is hysterical, crying, demanding to go home to Spain. She tells him she cannot take another day in this prison. Juan tries to calm her down. He reminds her of the stakes. He reminds her of the people who will die if they are exposed. But she doesn't care anymore. She gives him an ultimatum.
If you don't let me go back to Spain, I will go to the Spanish embassy tomorrow. I will tell them everything.
This is a catastrophe, not just a marital problem, a global crisis. The Spanish embassy in London is swarming with German informants. If Araceli walks through those doors and starts talking, Alaric is dead. The entire ghost network of 27 spies collapses. The German High Command realizes they've been played. The Allied invasion plans are jeopardized. Juan sits alone in the dark. He is a man who builds illusions for a living. He has fooled the Abwehr. He has fooled British intelligence. Now he realizes he has to perform the most painful deception of his life. He has to fool the woman he loves. The next morning, Juan doesn't argue. He leaves the apartment and goes straight to his MI5 handler, Thomas Harris. MI5 panics. They suggest locking Araceli up. They suggest sedating her. They don't know how to handle a hysterical wife who holds the keys to the entire war effort. But Juan is cold and calculating. He proposes a brilliant, ruthless solution. He asks MI5 to arrest him. The plan is set in motion. British agents burst into their home. They tear the place apart. They drag Juan away in handcuffs. His handler, playing the role of a furious MI5 interrogator, coldly tells Araceli, "Your husband is under arrest. Because of your threats, he will be tried for treason. He might be executed, and you are responsible." Araceli is terrified. The anger vanishes, replaced by pure horror. Araceli is brought to the prison. She sees her husband behind bars. She breaks down in tears. She begs the British officers to spare his life. She swears she was just angry. She promises she will never complain again. She promises to keep the secret until the end of the war, if they just let him live. With a stern warning, the British reluctantly release Juan. The crisis is averted. The greatest actor in the world, just successfully lied to the person who knew him best. He saved his marriage, his life, and the biggest secret of World War II, all with one staged arrest. Now he is ready to lie to Adolf Hitler. June 1944. The Allies are preparing to invade France. Operation Overlord. The target, Normandy. But there is a catastrophic problem. Hitler is holding elite panzer divisions in reserve near Paris. If those heavy tanks strike the beaches of Normandy in the first 48 hours, the Allies will be slaughtered, pushed right back into the sea. The invasion will only succeed if Hitler believes the real attack will happen somewhere else. The target of the deception, Pas de Calais, the narrowest point of the English Channel. And the man tasked with selling this lie is Juan Pujol. He begins the most audacious radio deception game in human history, Operation Fortitude. Juan starts flooding Berlin with urgent reports. He tells them a massive force, the first US Army group, is assembling in the southeast of England. 150,000 men. Commanded by the man the Germans fear most, General George Patton. It is a ghost army, an empire of Hollywood props. The tanks are made of inflatable rubber. The airplanes are plywood. British engineers use bulldozers to create fake tank tracks in the mud. They build fake barracks. They even broadcast fake radio chatter into the empty air, just in case the Germans are listening. But props aren't enough. Hitler needs human confirmation, and Garbo provides it every single day. My agent saw the deployment of the 3rd Armored Division. My agent heard the roar of engines in the forest. My agent confirms Patton is preparing to strike Pas de Calais. The Germans swallow the bait. They concentrate their strongest forces at Calais, waiting for Patton. And then, D-Day arrives, June 6th. The Allies storm Normandy. German generals on the coast sound the alarm. They call Berlin in a panic.
This is the invasion. Unleash the panzer reserves. Send the tanks to Normandy now.
Hitler hesitates. He looks at the map. He looks at the reports from his most trusted spy, Alaric. June 9th, midnight. The Allied bridgehead in Normandy is barely holding on. If the German tanks move now, it's over. In a cramped, smoke-filled room in London, Juan sits down at the radio. He begins the longest, most dangerous, and most important transmission of his life. It is a 1,200-word message. It takes over 2 hours of non-stop Morse code to transmit. Garbo reports directly to the German High Command. The Normandy landing is a trap. It is a diversion to pull your reserves away. Patton's real army, 150,000 men, is still in England. They will strike Pas de Calais as soon as you move your tanks. I repeat, do not fall for the provocation. Normandy is a fake. Wait for the real invasion. The message flies across the English Channel. It bypasses the generals. It lands directly on Adolf Hitler's desk. July 1944, a month after the invasion. Hitler still completely believes his favorite spy. In fact, he is so grateful to Alaric for warning him about the Normandy trap that he awards him the Iron Cross, Germany's highest military honor. In December of that same year, in total secrecy, King George VI awards agent Garbo the Order of the British Empire. Juan Pujol García becomes the only person in the history of World War II to receive the highest honors from both sides. But when the war ends in 1945, Juan knows the game isn't over. It has just become more dangerous. Surviving Nazis are fleeing to South America. Former Gestapo officers are hunting for traitors. If the remnants of the Third Reich ever find out who Alaric really was, they will brutally murder him and his family. Juan needs to disappear forever. In 1949, with the help of MI5, a rumor is planted. Juan's former handler travels to Angola, Africa. He returns to London a few weeks later with tragic news. Juan Pujol García has contracted a severe case of malaria. He died. He was buried in an unmarked grave. The file is closed. The ghost has finally vanished. 35 years pass. It is 1984. A British author and politician named Nigel West is studying declassified intelligence archives. He reads the files on Garbo and realizes something doesn't add up. The story of his death in Africa feels staged. West becomes obsessed. He spends months tracking down Spanish expatriates, following a faint, decades-old trail across the Atlantic Ocean. And finally, he finds him. In Caracas, Venezuela, the greatest spy of the 20th century is not living in a secret bunker. He is living a quiet, peaceful life. He is the owner of a small bookstore, alive, healthy, and 72 years old. He had faked his death just so he could be left alone. In June 1984, the British government brings Juan back to London. He is received at Buckingham Palace. But the true climax of his life happens a few days later. Juan is taken to the beaches of Normandy for the 40th anniversary of D-Day. He stands on the French shore looking out at the water, and then they start walking up to him, grey-haired veterans of the British and American armies, men who stormed those exact beaches 40 years ago, men who only survived that meat grinder because the German tanks never came. These men don't know his real name, but they know what he did. One by one, the veterans of the Allied forces salute a Spanish chicken farmer, the man who conjured an army of ghosts, the man who received a medal from a dictator, and the man who proved that sometimes the deadliest and most beautiful weapon in a war is imagination. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel. We have many more stories ahead that are impossible to believe, but actually happened